Yippee-ki-yay, mother...
Violence has been depicted in film and television since its conception. Films such as Psycho, Terminator, Rambo, and Die Hard have become global icons and are admired by large groups of people for their fast-paced and sometimes gory action sequences that keep audiences on the edge of their seat. Violence in video games, however, is a fairly new phenomenon that has been drawing concern from parents, teachers, and politicians since the Columbine High School massacre in 1999. It is well known that media plays a large role in human development because it provides a model for behavioral, social, and emotional expectations. With teens playing nearly 9 hours of video games a week, it is important to learn just how much of an influence that these games have on adolescents and young adults who are in pivotal stages of cognitive and emotional development. A key difference between violence that is seen in film and violence in video games is that video games allow the user to actually perform deviant acts as they please in the virtual world, sparking debate over whether violence in video games have a greater influence than that of film and television. Other questions that have been raised over the influence of video games include how it affects an individual's sense of empathy and how socialization, typical behavior, as well as other descriptive individual categories play into whether or not an individual will display deviant behavior at the expense of violent video games. In discussing whether or not video games have a heavier impact on individuals than film, it should be noted that parents are more likely to monitor what their kids watch and not what they play, which could lead to children viewing more explicit content from video games than movies and TV due to a lack of adult supervision. As for the actual influence that viewing graphic content has on the brain, a study that observed brainwave activity in 54 individuals using PET scanners revealed that brainwave activity rose when viewing a violent video, which was similar to the brainwave activity of 15 other participants in a separate study after they had performed violent actions in video games. The studies over brainwave activity showed that both film and video games have a similar impact on the mind. When reviewing the effects that graphic content has on perception and feelings, studies have indicated that behaving badly in a game increases aggression and makes people less likely to help others. Violent media seemingly leads to a decrease in empathy and a correct perception of what is socially and morally right or wrong. Furthermore, individuals who are exposed to violence more frequently showed they lacked an understanding that the violent events they were witnessing are morally wrong. Therefore, we can come to the conclusion that increased exposure to violence in media correlates with the greater acceptance of violence in real life. However, decreases in empathy may only be short-lived. This example is a similar phenomenon to Albert Bandura's Bobo doll experiment, where children viewed a video of an adult displaying aggressive behavior, so they expressed aggressive behavior themselves at the influence from what they saw in the video. This re-emphasizes the notion that exposure to violent content in media correlates with greater acceptance to violence in real life. The primary individuals who are at risk of actually carrying out aggressive behavior were those who are prone to being isolated and/or angry. Specifically, social outcasts and those who are lonely were more likely to express deviant and aggressive behavior. In 2 separate studies, social exclusion was directly linked to violence in video games and the likelihood of displaying aggressive behavior in real life. Those who feel they are excluded were far more likely to indulge in games of heavy violence than those who are included. In addition to increased signs of aggressiveness from antisocial individuals, individuals who had trouble controlling their temper showed even greater inclinations of expressing deviant behavior at the influence of violent media. It was found that individuals who are not generally angry were less likely to display aggression after playing violent video games than those who were angry. Regarding violent media influences on gender, it was found that girls are far less likely to carry out aggressive behavior after viewing violent content than men were because they possessed a greater sense of empathy and cared more for others than boys. In a study of 168 college-aged males, correlations were found between aggression and the exposure to violent media. Furthermore, traditional masculinity ideology, the belief that men are supposed to be ultra-dominant beings, was also linked to displays of aggression. Those who endorsed this masculine ideology also were more likely to partake in playing violent video games.
Women, on the other hand, typically prefer rich social interactions in games and don't appreciate violent content as male players do. Violence goes against the traditional gender roles of women. Therefore, women are less likely to partake in playing violent video games and are undoubtedly less likely to display aggressive behavior in the real world because of violence witnessed in such games. In conclusion, studies have sufficiently provided evidence that violent media can cause a decrease in one's empathy. However, the effects that these games have on individuals may only seriously apply to those who are generally angry and feel as if they are outcast from society. There is also a significant difference between men and women in how they react to violence in media, with women showing higher degrees of empathy and sympathy than men do. Traditional gender roles also have implications that strength and aggression are traits of masculinity, behaviors that many video game characters display and reinforce. I'm Rob Calvert, and thank you for watching my video.